Now, Newzroom Afrika's Sipha Kema has extensively covered crime in Bityi over the last few years, including the so-called rape extortionists. She joins me now in studio to further unpack this. Sipha, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. A very somber morning, especially for the communities within the Eastern Cape. Almost on a weekly, we are hearing very damning and disturbing stories with regards to the crime that's taking place in those areas. You've done extensive research, specifically for carte blanche with regards to the crime that's happening in the Bityi area. Just take us through the highlights of what you unpacked.
Well, certainly, Katlego, I mean, when we look at Bityi, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about the mass shooting that happened there. And I mean, my colleague in Nzeyinoya had attended the court case today for those suspects that were arrested. Now, coming back to Mqhekezweni, just to give you an overview and a picture of where Mqhekezweni is. Now, Bityi itself is the administration. It's the locality that it's under. There's other villages. It's a cluster of villages that fall under Bityi, and Mqhekezweni so happens to be one of those villages.
Right.
Now, that's where the royal homestead is, the great place is in Mqhekezweni, where, of course, Chieftainess Mqhekezweni was tragically gunned down inside that compound. Now, Katlego, talking about the crime that's happened there, the shooting, it's nothing new. For carte blanche, as you mentioned, I had done a piece and a story on the rape extortions that were happening in that area in Mqhekezweni, that where you find elderly women who, most of them actually are heading those households. It's mostly your elderly women, some of them running the private boarding facilities, as we saw now, within their homes. And this is where these criminals take advantage or find an opportunity with that, because the issue here now is law enforcement on the ground. Now, when we look at some of the stories that I've covered, and in particularly the rape extortion for carte blanche, where we heard that there's a Baraklava gang that comes into that village riding in horses at about 3 in the morning, terrorizing that community, terrorizing those elderly women, and forcing them to pay up, or they can get raped. That is what's facing that community. And they were telling us that actually some of them have guns. They have access to guns, which is what we've been saying about these rural communities in the Eastern Cape. They have guns. One elderly lady that we were talking to, 60 or just over 60 years old, and lives with her younger grandchildren. I mean, the oldest is about 6 years old. She was raped repeatedly in her home. She said the second time that she was raped, they asked her for money, and she told them, I don't have the money. The only money I have on me is 200 rand for my funeral policy, but I don't have anything else other than that. She says because she thought because she would have handed over that money, then she would have been fortunate. But unfortunately for her, she had to fight him off with her grandchildren lying in the bed next to her, Katlego.
These are just some heinous crimes that are happening within our communities, Sipha. And a lot of the times when we speak about crime, we often relate them to social issues that are happening and socioeconomic issues that exist within our communities. What are the contributing factors that you find specifically within these areas where you find people are not just committing crime, but crimes of this nature? Because it's one thing to take a cell phone because you're hungry, but raping a child or an elderly woman has nothing to do with bread and butter issues.
Absolutely. Now, what we found when we got there and we spoke to the community, especially those victims and survivors of those rapes, they were telling us that what they know is that there's the drugs. Drugs have taken over those rural communities. And one of the elderly women we were talking about, which I mentioned just now, she was telling me that when she was fighting off the rapist, he was too powerful for her. She said even at some point the Baraklava came off, and the look in his eyes, you could tell that this was not a human being. This was not a person, and that person did not care. And the worst part about it, Katlego, was that these are people from the community. These are young men from those communities who live amongst these elderly women.
All right.
Yes.
So drugs is an issue.
Yes.
The access to illegal firearms is an issue. Is the lack in the visibility of policing also a big contributing factor to this?
Absolutely. Now, in Bityi, as I mentioned, it's the administrative area, right? Yeah. Now, this is where you find the police station, and you also find the magistrate's court. So it's not really a town, but it just has access to a police station. Now, then, when you look at all the other smaller villages, there's a cluster of villages surrounding Bityi, which this small police station has to service. Now, last year in 2023, there was only one working police vehicle that was patrolling that area. Only one. And the radius we're talking about over hundreds of kilometers of radius that particular police station is actually expected to service. Now, in August last year, then Police Minister Mqhekezweni, as well as the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane, held an imbizo in Mqhekezweni because of the issue of this rape extortionist that was taking over that community and that village, promising them a satellite police station, because that police station is 25 kilometers away from that village. And you can imagine, majority of the people living in that village have no car. They don't have access to transport. When we were there, I was there for 3 days. Not once did I see a police vehicle patrolling the area, although the police minister had just left within 3 weeks having that imbizo. But police visibility was non-existent. And when we got to the police station, we found 6 police vehicles stationary. And we were told that when we spoke to the OR Tambo District Commissioner, that the issue here is that the garage that's actually servicing these vehicles is full. And the worst part about it is him denying that there was an issue of extortion when the community was telling us this. So no patrolling vehicles in that area, and only at that time there was only one working police vehicle. So this, for criminals like that balaclava-clad gang, is actually an opportunity for them, because once one of the elderly people that was raped, she had to wait until the next day, until the sun was out, so that she could walk to Komkhulu, which is the great place where Mqhekezweni was gunned down. And she played quite an important and key role in that community when it came to these rape extortions, opening a safe house, allowing the women and the children of that village to have a safe house in that compound. And
I think that was going to be my last question to you, to say what's the role of the royal house, of the household, but also in what collaborations are there between the royal household and government, very quickly before we wrap up.
Now remember, there's only so much they can do as well because of resources. As I mentioned, also there's no vehicle that's there stationary. They had requested for years, because this has been happening since 2020. For years they've been asking for a satellite police station. Till this day, there is no satellite police station. And they've been reporting on this issue extensively, going to the police station, talking to the MEC of Community Safety, regarding this. But nothing has yielded at all. As we've seen now, she is actually a victim now of crime.
All right, Sipha, Kema, thank you so much for bringing us that roundup of what's happening in the Eastern Cape with regards to all these crimes that we're witnessing almost on a weekly, as we work up to those devastating news of the Mqhekezweni family having lost their mother and the 5 children who have now been killed. And